Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Graphics Time with Rob and Tyler. That's Rob, and I'm Tyler. And that's our very professional intro. How's everybody doing today? We have a lot of folks saying hello to us in the chat on YouTube, and we just want to say good morning. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is WDWNT Live. We are here twice a day at 11 and either 8 or 9 p.m. until the Disney parks reopen. And so this is actually our final week. Friday will be the last day that we're doing this because Disney Springs is open. Disney World has announced its opening date, and, Shanghai is open. So basically all the parks are beginning to open. So that's the end of WDWNT Live, but we're still going to be here like almost every day of the week with something else. So yeah, graphics time. We are two of the graphic designers here at WDWNT, and so anytime you see a logo or a commercial, or there's a video editing or a video edit, or there's some kind of video that's been edited or has like motion graphics or something, that's basically what Rob and I do. We're the people who make those things happen. Yeah,
we should totally have a time where we just go live and edit a video on video for like 2 hours. I think that would be really entertaining for people to see.
Yes, there's nothing more fun than watching somebody tediously edit and trim and assemble video files together. I don't think anyone would I have to watch tutorials sometimes for like how to do something, and it's like, hey guys, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to show, and I'm like, just get to the do something. Anyways, we did one of these shows before, but Disney Springs opened, and they wanted to go live with that instead. So we're doing part 2 sort of today. We're going to continue to go through the giant library of stuff that we have, talking about how it was made or why we made it in such a way. And big shout out to Colleen, who's running our tech, an amazing person. I was like, how can I slip the word bee into this sentence? Because she loves being referred to as the bee character. Anyways, let's get started. Bring up something.
Oh, we did that one last. Oh, well, I guess we could do that again. Is that where we ended? Hey, how about that one? That one's great. Cool. So we did a bit called our Bad Billboards on WDW News Tonight, and it was Tom asked me to put together some bad billboards, and this one was supposed to be, and like we talked about on the last one, a lot of times we will get a request and not a lot of context, and so the request was to make a billboard and about Halloween Horror Nights, and hey, wouldn't it be cool if one of the houses was made out of White Claw cans? And so again, I was like wrapping my head around, what does that look like? And so I actually found a template online, or of like a kind of an image online of a haunted house, and I just built around it like, White Claw cans. And so I got bashed so hard on the show for this one. They're like, what is that? It's like a face made out of White Claw cans? Oh my gosh. So this was an example of one that like fell pretty hard, because I feel like a lot of the ones that we put up were like, oh, look, this is really awesome. This is one that did not hit the mark. And the rest of them from this bit I thought were pretty funny. And I thought this one was kind of funny, but apparently, like I said, it missed the mark a little bit.
Yeah, we're often given like not a lot of context as to what the joke is, so it's sort of up to us to sort of put in what the joke might be. Sometimes we have to ask around and be like, what does this mean? Other times we just do it ourselves, like, or it's just like vague enough.
Yeah, and sometimes it sounds funny, and then when you do it, it really isn't as funny as you thought, and sometimes vice versa. Like you say something and you put it together and you go, wait a minute, this actually has legs and could be hilarious.
Yes.
This one, not so much. Again, it was like, why is there a face? It's like, no, that's a door and 2 windows. It just happens to look like a face.
I mean,
but again,
now that you explain it, I get it.
Yeah.
I too thought it was just like a scary like monster made out of White Claw when I saw it. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, like I said, they can't all be winners, but I felt like, for the sake of fairness, we just needed to show one that was kind of, that I think aesthetically it's fine. I mean, it looks like a real billboard, I think, and yet at the same time, the White Claw can thing just didn't work. I thought about just stacking like, a pyramid of White Claw cans, and that didn't seem like that was going to work either.
So, incorrect Disney Parks fact of the week. Jennings Osborne first decorated the Tomorrowland Speedway in his backyard in 1986. So, yeah, that's like, I'm given that text basically, and I have to figure out how to make that visually comedic, I guess. So I took a top-down view of the Tomorrowland Speedway, like as it originally appeared, and then I used a Photoshop brush, but I separated it out so that instead of making one smooth line, it's a series of dots, and I just like painted all these lights around the track. And then that picture of Jennings Osborne, that was like the only one I found where he's like holding his arm out, and it was cut off on the left side. So that's actually the same hand. You can see the same ring on his fingers. I just copied and pasted that, so it was the opposite side. And then on the left side, it's actually his house. So it looks like that's in his backyard. It was, and then I'm like finishing it. I'm like, this is so, like every time I finish the incorrect of the week, I'm like, this is so dumb. This is so stupid. No one's gonna find this funny.
Fun story. I've been to Jennings Osborne's house. They're from Little Rock, Arkansas. And when my family lived there, we drove by, and he and Mickey Mouse lit the Christmas tree at the governor's mansion.
And you were there to see
Arkansas?
it?
In Arkansas, yeah. When I was a kid. We were there. We lived there.
Nice.
I've lived everywhere.
Hawaii?
Okay, no, I haven't lived in Hawaii. We haven't gone west of like that, Mississippi state line. Like I've lived in Arkansas and Missouri and Minnesota, and my family's from Iowa, but we haven't gone west of that.
Minnesota.
Someday. Minnesota.
Minnesota.
It comes out sometimes. People will make fun of me.
Illuminate the torches.
Yes. So this was one where we were doing it for the anniversary of, I guess, the ending of Illuminations, and it was, I think, for News Tonight, and we were doing. They were doing a game, and the game would go. You would start in Mexico, and they would ask trivia, and if you got it right, they would light the torch. And so again, Ben and the games team or tech team, both of them are amazing, and they put together this game and wrote all the questions, and they just needed a visual, and they said, hey, okay, what we need is a map of Epcot with all of the torches so that we can go in and individually light all of them. And so I was thinking sometimes Tom is very specific about what he needs and that it be correct. And so I was trying to put the torches at exactly the places where the torches actually are.
That makes sense.
Didn't quite work out, but they were fairly close. But when they put this together with the tech side, actually, I think when someone would light the torch, it would light right at the torch. There was actually a flame flickering on each torch as it would go around. And so the combination of like what I put together and what they put together, it just looked really cool. So if you happen to see that game, I think it worked out very well. But it required me to kind of like rebuild what those torches look like, kind of in a slightly more cartoonish way. And then you would go all the way around the lagoon, and then when you would get done with all of them, then you would light the one in the middle, which was on the globe. So it was fun to see it in action, though. It was really cool.
It was a really cute game. Incorrect Disney Parks fact of the week. Tom Close refuses to ride with regular guests on any theme park ride. So that's an existing photo of Slinky Dog. And then I don't remember where I got this picture of Tom from. I have no idea the context of that image. But yeah, I ended up having to erase people's heads. Like, you can see the bar right behind his head is just like janky, like the lines don't really match up, and then all the existing people behind that, I had to look up pictures of kids crying. And then,
I'm sorry, what was that technical term you just used? Janky?
Janky, yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's very technical.
Isn't that a word? Like askew. That was my phone. Like askew or something?
No, it is. It's just funny to hear you use it in that very
Janky.
technical term. Yeah, it's a very it's a little wonky. It's a little off.
It's askew. I don't remember if I found images of kids crying and then put Mickey hats on them, or if they just already had Mickey hats, because they're all the same hat. But I think they
are they?
They are just wearing like hats. I can't.
The kid in the back looks like he's actually wearing a hat because he's also got a pin lanyard on.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And it's the logos.
Like kids crying at Disney or something like that, which is very uncomfortable and inappropriate to be browsing through and be like, no, this one's not right. Like,
you know what though, you bring up an interesting point. Sometimes your browser history looks a little funky when you're trying to get graphics for things. In my day job, that comes up a lot, where I just think if something were to happen to me and someone were to go looking, some of the stuff would look a little weird. Especially there was some stuff when I was searching country bears that shouldn't have come up. So
what? Oh, in the moment I said what, I realized what the joke was.
Oh, it was not a joke. I'm serious. That actually happened.
Oh my. Okay then. Let's move along.
Okay. Yeah. So this was something that was the magnet game. And this is something that came out of, I don't know if Tom wanted to do this or the game writers came up with it, but the idea was they wanted to have like a trace of what a magnet would have looked like on a car. I think Tom maybe had seen, like, driven up behind a dirty car that had a pass holder magnet on it. But and he and someone else were in the car trying to guess what that pass holder magnet was based on the amount of dirt or like kind of rust that was left after the magnet had gone. And so it became the idea for putting this game together. So I really wanted this game to like work. And so I went out to the parking lot at the office and just started taking pictures of the backs of cars, because I didn't want it to be the same car over and over again. And also for some reason, like Googling that, it didn't come up with a lot of choices. So I went around the parking lot, and I'm sure it looked really like weird, me walking around the parking lot of my office complex, taking pictures of the backs of cars, and took a whole bunch of pictures, and then came up and created, like, found the magnets online, and then dropped them out and just used the trace around them, and then made kind of a halo effect around it so that you could get the idea of where that was. And then because I didn't want to show anybody's license plates, I made funny license plates for every single one of the bits, and they were all different. And so this one was like a Save the Bears thing. And so when I did this and went around and got all this stuff together, the comment that came back was, magnets aren't really that large. And my point in doing that was that so that people could see get a good look at the size of the magnet and see, like, what the shape was and what what exactly it was. So I did accentuate it and make it like kind of cartoonish and oversized, because I wanted to make sure that people could, kind of play the game, because that was the whole point of it. But again, I sort of missed the mark on the size part of it, but the rest of it, I felt like the bit worked really well, and most people were able to guess what the magnets were. And now that I'm looking at this one, I can't remember which one this was. It feels like it was maybe
a hard game. It's
yeah,
so
I feel
hard,
like maybe it was Chef Mickey or Chef Minnie, maybe, because it looked like it had the bow. So
it's like you could it's like Jumble Cruise. Like it's, you think it could be so simple, but then like when you're trying to figure out like the jumble, especially how long some of them are, like it's very difficult. And this one, like unless you are an AP, and I guess you have like 40 magnets you can quickly look between, like this is impossible. This is nearly impossible.
There were like a dozen of them too that I put in there, and some of them I thought looked a lot very similar, because there was a Chef Mickey and there was a Chef Minnie at this time. So I don't know. I think it was a really fun idea for a game. That was the only thing that, like, you know, I always kind of like get down on myself about the things that missed, and the miss was that it was too large, that the magnet would not have actually been that large on a car. But I did have a lot of fun with license plates.
And you had to change the license plate too, right?
Yeah,
because that's not their actual
license
that's what
plate. I'm saying.
You also say the word bears on it.
I made funny license plates for all of them, and I tried to make it not too on the nose. Like, you know, I didn't do like just, you know, all 7s on all of them, which would have been easy enough to do. I tried to like mix it up a little bit and make them all just a little bit different. Almost would have been a funnier bit than the actual magnet. So like we could have done a license plate game or a license plate bit, and then also have done you know, the magnet game separately.
Maybe we'll do that next. That should be a bit. Oh my god. I don't remember if this was real or not. Was this a real news story that became a joke? Does anyone know?
I don't remember what the deal was with that one.
Incorrect Disney Parks Fact of the Week. The Disneyland Paris castle won't be decorated for Christmas this year because of bull weevils, which are tiny flying mites, essentially. And grabbed an image of Disneyland Paris and then used like a paint splatter brush to make all these tiny little dots, make it look like they're swarming around the castle. And then as an added gag, that's Weevil Underwood in the bottom left from Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 1. And that was another thing I just threw in because I don't know if people know what a bull weevil is. But that guy's like Weevil Underwood is like a bug type duelist in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I thought that would be a funny joke because like that's what a weevil is a bug. And then I grabbed this picture of Tom and put some weevils on his eyeballs.
Fun fact about the picture of Tom, I took that picture at Reflections event. We were doing a Skyliner crawl, and they were he was using that flag to kind of like Sherpa everyone from one location to the next. And we were at the Art of Animation Landscape of Flavors food court, and I was kind of like down on the ground taking pictures of people as they would walk by, and he just looked at the camera and gave that face. And I think at some point you picked that up, and I think you've used it multiple times. It's a classic. He just looked right in the camera and made that face. Yeah.
There are pictures that I like save into a specific WDWNT folder. So it's like anytime I need a good quality image of somebody on staff for whatever joke, I could just go there and grab it. So yeah, I've saved that. I have Colleen looking through a window while Eric is taking pictures of food. Like I'm like, oh, I'll eventually need to use these somehow.
Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes to find, especially with Tom, because a lot of the bits are about Tom or include Tom. It's sometimes hard to find like different pictures of him, and especially modern ones, because a lot of them, if you go and you Google, you find some of the older pictures of him. But I think I have a very similar folder somewhere.
Oh yeah, well, there's staff where sometimes you'll need to grab an image, like the Great Movie Ride opening. Like I needed one image of at least like 7 staff members, or like 9 of them, I think. And I'm like, Fig must have pictures of herself. And then I go onto like her Twitter and I'm like, oh, there's like nothing here. Like either they're not high quality or her head's cut off. I'm like, can I just get a decent picture, please? Like somebody send me something or take something. So yeah, when you get a good photo, you save it so that you don't have to do that in the future.
You know, I don't think we have it in the collection, but there was a great example of like trying to find a picture in general. They did a bit about the sporks and making your own sporks at Galaxy's Edge. It was a commercial that we ran, and when we ran it, Tom, I created a graphic for it, and it was supposed to be for the Pinocchio Village House bathrooms, is where Tom was going to be located, and you could come there and make a spork. So I could not, for the life of me, find a photo of the Pinocchio bathrooms from Disneyland. And so I did the best I could. I put something up. I think it may have been actually of the Pinocchio Village House. And when I put it up, I just left it there and said, or I gave it to Tom. I said, hey, here it is. And he's like, yeah, it has to be the bathrooms. I said, I literally can't find a picture of the bathrooms anywhere. And so we had a reporter in Disneyland who was in the park at the time. And he's like, hold on, I'll get you one. And he went to the reporter and said, hey, get a picture of the Pinocchio bathrooms. They took a picture of them. And then he like put it in Slack and gave it to me, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. That's like, hey, we don't have a picture, we'll just take one. We're there now. So that was kind of cool.
That's the other thing, is like sometimes you need to get a specific image of a park or of like inside of the parks. But like for like the Wizard of Braz one that I did, like I could not find a good quality image of that building, and I think I had to like replicate it or like add a sign or something to make it look. The other thing is like, because we do shows where they are monetized, which means there's ads running on it, like we need to make sure that the images that we acquire, like either like sometimes, like I think I did a joke once where I just used a Shutterstock image and kept the watermark on because that was funnier. But like, right, you want to make sure that you're getting images that are labeled as these are okay for remodification or reuse for commercial use or whatever. And there's a tool on Google where you can do that, because photos can be like labeled with metadata, which is like just like information that's in the background of the file. So like you can reuse it, and you can label images like that on Google. So that's what occasionally how I at least search for them. But like, yeah, when you need something from the parks, like you can either go to Google Maps and do the street view, and if you can't find the photo like that, you gotta get somebody to like go out into the park and take a photo for you.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll use pictures that are actually, you know, taken by WDWNT instead, you know, of doing that, or use some that I've taken. I mean, I've taken a ton of pictures of the parks over the years, and most times when I first started doing graphics for the blog, I would go find my pictures to use if we were talking about the castle, or if we were talking about, you know, the archway in Hollywood Studios. So all of those times I would try to get as many of them to be the pictures that I had taken instead. And so but again, in my day job, it's a huge deal, because people, you know, they take these pictures and this is their livelihood, and then they get out on the internet and people just take them because they think, oh, it's on the internet, you can just take this, it's free. And then they have tools that they can use to backtrack and find the picture, find wherever their picture is being used on the internet, and then they can write you a little letter that says, hey, I see you're using my image, thanks so much, here's a bill. And you know, they are within their rights to come at you and get you to pay for that. So we've actually had run-ins with that enough times that I am very careful to make sure that we don't do that. And again, it's respectful to the artist. The person who takes the photo is an artist. They had a vision, they saw something, no matter what it was, they're the ones that took the picture, it's their work. So, you know, to your point, like I'll go into Google and do Creative Commons if I have to, and then you find out what you need to do as far as crediting it. Sometimes, again, as a graphic designer, I will go in, I'll just pick a little piece of an image. So, you know, if you just have just like a fraction of it that you're using, sometimes it changes it enough. But, you know, again, we really are trying to make sure that we don't put out anything or just grab something and put it up and say, hey, this is ours, because it's not. I mean, you know, even though we've made it into something different, it really, you know, we really need to credit the artists who created it. So again, we try to use almost all original stuff that we use. Is that boring?
Or in some cases, we make it.
Yes, correct.
No, people are fine with chat. Yeah, like sometimes I'll just take a picture. Like if I need a table at a certain angle, I'll just take a picture of it. Like it's so much easier than searching like on Google for like table 3/4 angle. Like sometimes like you can't even like describe what you need in like a Google search to find like that specific image.
Yeah, like you holding the pickle.
Yeah, like me holding the pickle. All right, what's next?
Okay, so yeah, so Reflections of Forever was kind of interesting in the fact that, you know, Tyler put together the logo for Reflections of Forever, and I really wanted to do the magnet. And so the first magnet we did, or the last magnet we did for Stage 89 and the first event that I had gone to, I was like, oh man, I would love that. Like for what I do, I've designed like van wraps, and I've designed you know, wall wraps at our offices and things like that. And yet, for some reason, the idea of being able to design a magnet was so exciting to me. I just like, that was like the biggest deal. So I designed this magnet because I was, and I think we have a little bit of a problem when it came to Illuminations, that it was hard to decide how you like represent that. If we're representing the castle, there's a million ways to do that, and people know what that looks like. And you can do a shadow of the castle, or, you know, just the turrets, or, I mean, there's so many different things that you can do if you're trying to do the castle. But when you're talking about, you know, Illuminations, it's fireworks and lasers and fire and torches and the globe, and, you know, and it's just so many things. And so what I thought would have been cool was to put together like the globe itself as like the representation for the magnet, because I was like, the globe is like the center of all of it, and that kind of makes, you know, made the most sense to me at the time. So I went through and I basically created like a sketch image of the globe itself, and this was all done in vector artwork. So this is all lines and curves and nodes, and I created this and put it out there as like a first pass. Had the, you know, kind of the glow behind it, kind of representing the glow that was happening around the lake. And I put it out there, and the immediate, I mean, it took forever to do, and the immediate response was, no, that doesn't look like that. That doesn't represent Illuminations enough. It has to have the torch in there. And so, you know, I was like, oh, okay. And so I went back in and recreated like everything. Yeah, it's like everything. So sometimes like, and I'm sure I was working on this at like 2 a.m. And again, I was like, this is the best thing ever. And then it was like, you know, you're right. It needs to be better than that. And so I went back in and created this. And so it has the torch coming out. It has that 3D effect. I put 7 on there because of the whole 7 thing. Put the, you know, illumination, the fireworks in the background, and, you know, kind of the silhouette of World Showcase and the spaceship Earth in the back, and then the water. So all of these pieces were separate. I don't know that in the actual magnet that was made, you could really tell that there was a silhouette of World Showcase back there. Like, I'm not sure if that really stuck out the way the way that the magnet was printed. But again, it was pretty cool. Like at the event, you know, as I was driving around in my rental car, seeing like the magnets on the back of other people's cars, that was kind of cool. But I think, again, this was an example of collaboration that when I put it out there, it was like, no, that's actually not what we're looking for. We're looking for something a little bit different. And I'm like, okay, I got you. Went back in and created this.
I think this one's the winner, though, compared to the other one.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. But like, yeah, compared to the other, I mean, I looking at that other one, when I went back to find images to share for graphics time, I mean, even the trace that I put around the logo, I was like, why did I put that gradient stroke around that? I have no idea what I was thinking. It was really bad. So again, final product, I was pretty excited about how that worked out. And this was very similar thing that, you know, for Reflections, we did pins, and so for the pins, they needed a pin back. So I got to create this pin back card for, I think we did this basically for Stage 89, and then kind of recreated it so that we had a common theme for, yeah, there you go. So we had a common like look for each event, and you know, recreated kind of like my own version of what some of the pin backings actually look like. And then when I made it, I was like, there's something missing. And then it was that punch that they have so that they can hang them up. And so I graphically created what would seem like a hole punch in the card. And they're all printed like business cards anyway, but I just like visually, I think that every pin card has that punch in the top so that it can hang on the racks. And so I just added that at the top for it. Also, this is a full bleed. A lot of times when you're doing print work, you have to create what is in the artwork, which is, again, sorry if this is kind of boring, but is a full bleed. And the full bleed means that the image itself has to go past the edge so that when the printer prints it, then they cut it, it goes edge to edge, and there's not like a white border around it. So so this actually extends larger than the card did, and the circles get cut on the left and right, top and bottom. I do a lot of print work.
Oh yeah. In Greg Disney Backstory of the Week, the Disney Skyliner gondolas didn't pile up; they were just hugging. And again, that was just what I was given, and so I decided to draw little cartoon faces on the family reunion. And then the bottom is my favorite: taking pictures is making memories, and then drawing all these like Skyliners with like little huggy faces like they're having a family reunion. And I'm like, what would a Skyliner be like if the doors were open? So I just made them look like their faces were split in half, or like their mouths were open or something. These are so much fun to draw little faces onto stuff. I think I did I don't know if the Epcot Sorry title is in here, but I had to draw make the cover of Sorry, but the Epcot edition. And yeah, so I drew little faces on those ones as well, especially the one that's drinking because it's upset, and poor Spaceship Earth crying. Those are the graphics that are probably the most fun to do. If I the corn dogs, if I ever get the chance to do that, that's my favorite thing to probably do, is take a static image of something that's not personified and then give it a personality with a weird face. But the Skyliner one is great.
And when you do this, do you draw on the tablet and put it into? Okay, I just didn't know.
That's the only way I could get if I'm trying to draw anything, that's the only way you can get the proper strokes of drawing, the pressure of the pencil. Otherwise it would just be one solid colored line, or one solid width line, and so it's always better to draw on a tablet.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat asked us before, was there any instance where someone has stolen or used our art or graphics without permission? That's a good question.
Yes, there is. So I don't know if I can talk about this, though. Can I talk about this?
I don't know. Can you? Is it appropriate?
Oh, yeah, no, it's appropriate. It's appropriate. We had a piece of an exclusive piece, and we put a watermark on it. And I worked on the piece of artwork, and somebody took it for their podcast, and they took out my watermark. But because I had worked on the piece for so long and kind of made some changes and adjustments to it, there was an area at the top that I had known I had not gotten right, and so I could tell immediately that it was something that I had worked on, and they had just taken it and rubbed out our watermark on it. So that happened I mean, I've had it happen more in again, day job, is that somebody takes something and just starts using it as their own. And some of that, it's like, oh, hey, that's really cool. Somebody liked my stuff enough to start using it. And then the other part of me is going, but they stole it and now they're passing it off as theirs, and that's not cool. But I mean, it's never been a big enough deal that I've kind of tried to chase them down or anything on it. And then sometimes somebody will grab something, like somebody grabbed, when I did the Muppet, overlays. There was a commercial they did about Muppet restaurant overlays after the Regal Eagle thing happened. And I did a whole bunch of pretend Muppet, overlays. And one of them was, the Electric Mayhem umbrella instead of the electric umbrella. And I think it was like Dr. Teeth. We changed it a couple times. I think it was like Dr. Teeth and the electric umbrella is what we ended up with. But whatever it was, somebody did a screen grab of it when it ran on the show, and they tweeted it out, and they were like, I love this. This is awesome. I want this, I want this to happen, or something like that. And I just happened to see it come up and was like, oh my gosh, somebody took a piece of artwork that I did and they liked it and they put it up. So in that case, it was all good. But yeah, people, there are times where people will take
That's
things.
a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. People love to, there's a lot of bots online that people can create, like a robot that would search a website and look for an image or a most popular image that's been viewed or searched. And then it will just slap that on some place like Redbubble or TeePublic without permission. A watermark, if you let's say Rob made something and it said at the bottom, property of WDWNT with our logo, and I shared it, that's fine if I shared an image that had a watermark, because then at least the person who made it is getting proper credit. I'm saying this because I feel like most people don't know how that works. But if you were to take an image that Rob made that has a watermark with his name or logo on it, and you paint over it to remove the watermark or crop it out, that's super, super bad practice. And if we happen to have a Creative Commons license or something on it, we could sue you. So that's really fun. So don't do that. Don't erase people's watermark. It's very simple. If somebody made something and you're sharing it around, you just tell people that this person made it. It's called credit. And it's the most simple thing you can do to just give somebody the basic human decency of saying this person made something. It's like wearing, I don't know, a face mask to a place that requires you to wear a face mask. It's like a courtesy to everybody else. So if
shots fired. No, okay. So one thing though is that just because you see something that you want to use and you credit doesn't always necessarily mean that's okay either. Just to credit it. So again, this is thinking more along the lines of doing digital for radio. Is that when we see an image, say a photographer took an exclusive photo of Jennifer Lopez on a beach somewhere, we can't just take it and put his name underneath it, because we haven't necessarily gotten permission, and maybe he sold that to an outlet exclusively, and then we're just taking it and putting the name there. So there may be deals in place that make that difficult to do. But what you can do is that if somebody puts something on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, there is a share tool in all of those where you can literally embed that image if you're sharing it out on your social, or you're sharing it out on your platform, so that you can embed it and put it out there, because it creates a credit to whoever did it. It has their username on it, and then more than that, it gives them the ability that if they ever want to remove it, they take it down and it pulls it from everywhere where it's been shared. So they have control over it. What I've seen people do sometimes is they see something on Instagram they like, and they will download it and upload it again and then give credit. That's completely different. So, people need to be able to control the artwork or the image that they've put up there. So that's what the embed tool does. It gives people the ability to share it, but at the same time, the control still goes back to the owner. So, just a heads up.
And just as And just to add on to the whole, did somebody ever steal your artwork? Yeah, somebody stole a cosplay photo of me and photo manipulated it to be in a very uncomfortable situation that I was not okay with. And I had to report it directly to the website. So yeah, that's not good. Don't do that either. Don't take people's likenesses. And so, well, see, I can't even say that because we do that quite often.
Yes.
Which is, but in,
yes.
I did the Iger King bit, and I was like, this is uncomfortable because I'm photo manipulating an existing person into a very awkward position. But and I'm like, this makes me uncomfortable. And then I was told, why? These people are billionaires who are stealing money, who are not paying their workers and are still getting paid billions of dollars. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair, I guess. So if you're using somebody's likeness, just get their permission. Just ask them first.
There are all kinds of layers to that, though. If we were selling T-shirts with that design on it, that would be different because we would be actually profiting directly off of someone else's likeness. That would be an overstep. I think that using it for parody, a lot of times there are some gray areas. So, but again, it comes back to, are you making money off of that? Again, we have a license to use artists like musicians. And so if we want to use like Garth Brooks' image to promote the Garth Brooks concert, we're usually going to be okay as long as if it's a promotional photo, like something that he paid to have made. However, if like we wanted to sell like, I don't know, hemorrhoid cream and we wanted to use his photo on that ad, whether it's digital or whatever, that's out of bounds because we're using his likeness to try to make money. So it doesn't necessarily have to be you selling something, but that's where things get a little bit dicey. But I think when you're doing parody, especially when we do it on videos rather than something that's going to be printed on a billboard or live forever, I don't know. There are a lot of laws to this, and there are a lot of people a lot smarter than I am about it. So speaking of which, here's a mask. Colleen's like moving along. So the mask that we did, this is one that has gone up recently. I don't think we talked about this last time, but so we've done all these masks for TeePublic. Tyler and I have both worked on some that are up there. And if you want, you can go to TeePublic and you can order some face masks with art on it that we've done. So I created this from scratch, doing all of this is built in Vector again. But I created this originally, and I had a really hard time trying to find pictures of the cast members at Muppet Vision wearing the lab coat, and the lab coat was the important part. So I'm looking all over trying to find it. I couldn't find any of them wearing the lab coat. I could see them in the blue and orange jumpsuit, and then they've changed the costuming since then to something a little bit more generic for the park in general. But I couldn't find anything specific to that. So actually, the first time I made it with like a Dr. Bunsen honeydew red tie instead of the blue outfit, and the response that came back was, no, it has to be the original outfit. And I was like, I just didn't see anybody wearing that. And we went back in, and I think Tom found a photo somewhere of somebody wearing one, and I went back in and created that. So we have a lot of them that are cast costumes that are, again, all built from scratch in Vector, and it a little bit time consuming, but I think some of them turned out really well, and this one I was really proud of.
Yeah, we had to make a lot of masks, and we're still making some, and I'm also really behind on trying to get some made. We have a lot of stuff to do this week, honestly. Yep. Wait, I don't remember what the bit was for this. This wasn't a commercial. Was this just like, it's clearly a joke on the fact that gondolas are very, very hot, which it feels like I'm in right now. But yeah, I don't remember why we did this.
I feel like there was just an ask for this in the channel, and you're like, I'll do it, but what's that look like? But I like the way it turned out, man.
Thing to replicate.
I
did like the Skyliner logo is just 3 shapes with a stroke and then the font in the middle. So that was the easiest thing to replicate, actually. But then, I think I painted out a gondola, and then because it's easy, the sky is blue in the background, so just painting that out and then replacing it with an image of an air fryer. And I specifically looked for an air fryer that was gondola shaped. That one was pretty easy. But little touches like just blurring an image, like a thing that's in the distance, is just like such a little touch that makes something look more realistic. Like the quarantine napkin, like just blurring it in the right places to give like a field of depth is, it's just like that makes it even look more real. More real. That's not a word. Next. These ones were so good.
This was like a passion project, these posters. So when we were doing the I guess it was Studios Week, and they were doing the show where the whole show was going to be out about the Great Movie Ride. The idea was that they wanted to do movies that didn't make it into the Great Movie Ride and wanted to do posters for those. So I started down the line of making just posters and really trying hard to mimic like what an actual movie poster would look like, and then making them all look different. And I think I made about 14 of these in the span of about 48 hours. But this is the one that I just really liked the way that it worked and turned out. And we when I put them into chat for like approval, one of the things that came back was, they needed to be widescreen. And that's the thing that bothers me a lot if I'm doing a slideshow or anything. Like, it bothers me personally when you see a picture and there's white space on the left and the right. So I do try to do things to fill, but a movie poster just happens to be vertical. I mean, it's portrait, not landscape. So when I made them really kind of true to a movie poster. And then when the request was like, oh, hey, these really actually need to be, full screen, I went back and put a shot of the Great Movie Ride queue behind it. And so all the movie posters were in front, and I kind of gave it a border and an outline, and so that it would stand out in the foreground. But again, we made about 14 of these. And then after the show, when we were doing the post show, somebody in the wigs was like, hey, can we have like copies of those? So I went back to the original like high resolution images before I put the background in there, and then saved them all out, and then we dropped them into dropped them out there for wigs. So it was really neat and that was a time when Tom said, yeah, sure, it would be great to share more stuff with wigs, because we work on these for so long, and then they're shown for like 7 seconds. And that is true. It was just 7-second slides of something that took so long to build. But the Pizza Rizzo thing, Nightmare on Grand Avenue, like I recreated the Nightmare logo as close to the original as possible. Put the Freddy Krueger hand coming down from the top, and kind of faded that out a little bit, and then I did a gradient on the building so that it looked like it was shadowed down, and even gave it like a fake movie credits at the bottom, Scrappy Cat Productions. So it's just I made a bunch of these at once, and it just took forever to do, but I just was really excited about the way this one turned out.
Yeah, isn't it weird though that like movie posters used to be horizontal, and then they became vertical, and now all screens are like movie screens are horizontal. So if you want to show it, it's got to be like, it's got to have that weird like background thing added to it, or like how people like when they make vertical video that appears in a horizontal video, it's like blurred background, which is like somebody decided that it's just how that works. What was it? Oh yeah, we had to make a bunch of attractions that are like when they announced Epcot Forever, which is a temporary show. We're like, well, what other temporary things can have the word forever attached to it? So I grabbed half, you grabbed half. And I think this one was my favorite, because I wanted to make the Stitch. It's hard to make a thing that's lit up look like it's not lit up anymore. So for like the apostrophe S, I got to desaturate it, and then I had to lower the color, and then I had to make it match just like the surrounding color. But then I edited the sign out and made it say forever in a similar font, and the sparks are pretty easy. If anything has just like a black background, pardon me, in Photoshop, you can use like blending layers to sort of eliminate anything dark, so only the light stuff comes through. Same thing with anything like light that has dark stuff come through. That's when we do like the video stuff for like, or video overlays for like News Tonight or Incorrect or the Disney Plus. That's sometimes what those are, is just like an effect with a black background and then just the color black is taken out. So instead of a green screen, it's just you remove anything that's dark, so all the light stuff comes through, and that's what those sparks are. But yeah, anytime I get to do stuff like this or just in general make fun of Stitch's Great Escape, that's always fun.
So this little Ben, that's who that is. That's little Ben. Ben had that's just what I call this. Ben had done at the very end of Park Center. There's a moment between the time where the show ends and the post show begins where he has to switch everything over. So take it from live to just Wigs exclusive, and so he had put it out there like that he wanted there to be something that just sat there that said, hey, we're cleaning out the tube. So he created something, he just typed it out on a white screen. And then I think he had asked like, hey, can we get something else on here? And then like a couple weeks later, I was on Park Center, and at the very end when I saw that, I was like, I feel so bad. Like I haven't created anything yet for him. So I went in and created this little character that is Little Ben. I think that it was kind of like I sampled his hair and eye colors and all that, so it's like it should be more like I took a photo of him and like tried to save all that stuff over, and just make it look. And when he does Park Center, he's always wearing his News Today polo shirt. So I felt like it needed something like that. So really, literally, you only see this if you wait to the very end of Park Center, or you're a Wigs member and you see the transition from this to the post show. So I don't know. And every time, excuse me, every time I see it, I always go, Little Ben. And I don't know why. I like it. I think it's fun. So, and then we did a bit once. Nah, that's fine. That's it. It's all good.
We need a cartoon called The Adventures of Lil Ben.
Yay.
Just him dealing with technical issues. This week on Disney Plus, the joke was Eat Alone, which was just supposed to be, I think, Spice Road Grill or whatever that. What's that restaurant?
Spice Road,
like
Spice
right
Road
out.
Table.
Oh, Spice Road Table. Yeah. I don't know where this joke came from, but Macaulay Culkin. First of all, a lot of people give Macaulay Culkin a lot of crap about like his appearance. He cleans up very nice when he wants to or needs to be. Just watch like Best of the Worst on Red Letter Media, or when he was on Ellen. But he posted this photo. He's like, somebody asked like, what would Home Alone be like now if it was starring you now? And he's like, it would probably look like this. And he took this awful picture of like his shirt riding up, and he's just like a complete mess on the couch, and he has like all this like bags of chips and food around him or something. And I'm like, well, I gotta use that, it's just there. So I used that Twitter photo, and I put him into Spice Road Table. And I replicate. I think you had done, Rob. You had done like little icons for. I think it was Dream Flight. Of each location from the original Epcot mats. Yeah. So I borrowed the one from Morocco.
That's
awesome.
And
I made it look like the Home Alone house, and then I replicated the Home Alone font, but made it say Eat Alone. And I don't know how this joke played, because no one laughed at it when it was actually on the show. And like sometimes they're like, here's the joke, everybody. And then Tom will just go, yep. All right. So our next bit. And I'm like, oh, I could like, nobody found it funny. Nobody laughed. I couldn't tell if anyone enjoyed it in the chat. So that'll often happen. It's the equivalent of like telling a joke and the audience just doesn't laugh, or someone's just like goes, like, sometimes it's hard to tell if people are going to find it funny or not. Like,
I gotta say, it's
you and I probably both.
It's somewhat cathartic to me that you have the same feelings that I do, that you go through and you watch these and see how they land, and if anybody is like into it, and some of the times it's like, if Tom laughs, I'm like, okay, we're good. That's, it made him laugh. That's fine. But you don't always get you don't always get the feedback, especially like during, these times where no one could go to the studio. So you don't know if there's a studio audience and like how many people are actually in the office and what else they're doing at the time. So it is, again, it's comforting to me to know that you and I are both doing basically the exact same thing, that we're watching this to see if the bits land.
Well, we're creating like some additional type of comedy, and sometimes you'll make a graphic and then in like Slack where we shared them, somebody will just be like, looks good, thanks. And you're like, okay, like sometimes you want a little bit extra like critique, or I'm not going to call it validation, but if you're writing something that's like a comedy bit or like a monologue joke, or in this case making like a comedic graphic, you want to know whether it's funny or not sometimes. And so like you and I are the same. We both tune in and we watch live and we throw up the live chat and we're like, God, I hope people like say lol, or I hope people say that they like this. But also half the time I don't know what you're making. Yeah.
Speaking of watching live, Colleen, do you have the purple splash? So Tyler and I were watching live one night. Apparently both of us were watching.
This?
We were watching. Yes. So we were both watching news tonight, and somebody said something about the purple wall and how it's almost like a character unto itself in the parks because people get their picture taken with it. And I believe Nick said this. He said, "I wonder what if the purple wall was signing your autograph book, what that would look like." And then he kind of like sort of turned to camera and said, "Hey, Tyler and Rob, if you're watching, we'd love to see what that looks like." And then came this kind of battle between the two of us to see what we could come up with. And here's the thing that frustrates me. And when I saw this in Tyler's pictures, I went through and I tried to look and see if I could find mine, but I mean, literally, I was sitting. It was a Thursday night. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I'm just sitting there, and then I hear my name mentioned, and I'm like, "What?" And okay. So then I'm just going through and trying to make this happen. And it's kind of like we talked about context, like wrapping your head around what this looks like, with just as like vague, the vague description. So I went through. Found a picture of a person. First of all, I found like a Disney autograph book, cropped everything out, put it on a desk in visually, and then I found a picture of a person in front of the wall, and I put that into the left-hand side of the autograph book, and then made a frame around it so it kind of partially cut off the person so that you saw more of the wall than the person. Then went on the other side, and then in an area where you would see an autograph, basically replicated the purple wall print itself, thinking that maybe the purple wall would sign that. Tyler took a book and he put a splat on it, and they loved this, and they were like, just thought mine was okay. And I was just like, what? But I agree. I mean, it's clean. It's like sometimes cleaner is better. It's just a very like clean piece. So I don't know. I hate to lose, but at the same time, it was the right move. It was the right move, man. It was. He was like pitting us against each other. It was like, let's see who can come up with the best thing. And then I think they voted on it. But I mean, I think that Tyler's was better. I don't know. It was just as you were talking about that.
I'm not thinking of it like a competition. It was just like. I don't know. They were like, "Hey, someone make this joke," and I'm like, "Well, I'm at my computer." Like, we didn't message each other, going like, well, "I'm going to make it first." Like, it's
no, we really didn't, because I think a lot of times we just kind of jump immediately. And there was something that I did on the fly, and I don't remember what it was, but like Tom mentioned it, and I went through and put it together and like sent it in Slack, and then Tom's like, "Oh, they didn't make that, did they?" And it's like, then he put it up, and then there was another time where you did the somebody accidentally said Emilio Estevez, and in referring to bongos, and he's like, "Hey, somebody should make a make the pineapple with like an evil Emilio Estevez in it." And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And then all of a sudden it pops up on screen because Tyler like knocked it out immediately. So
yeah, that was an instance where I'm like, oh God, that'd be so stupid. But if I could like make it in like 5 minutes, and I did. Like it looks terrible. And I think it's a loss to time. I don't have that graphic anymore. I don't know if anyone else has it.
Wow, the Emilio Estevez thing, yeah. So here's the thing about this.
Why does that have a giant sigh ahead of it?
Okay, so when we were again, this one amuses me. I don't know that it amuses anybody else. Sometimes with the Park Center thumbnails, I like to do something funny, and so this was when we had just been to Reflections of Forever. We did a live show, or we recorded our show from the studio. We didn't do it live. We recorded our show from the studio, and Courtney, who is in chat right now, she was there, and she was one of the people on the panel and was awesome. And it was me and Courtney and Nathan, and Allison was actually down there for the event, and so she was there, and Ben. I don't know where Pete was. I think maybe he might have been at a wedding or something, so he wasn't there for this. And then Jill was off doing something else too. So we were down there, and we just did this live, like the in studio all together at Park Center. And so that was like on the 30th or the 29th of September. And then we were going to run it on the 2nd. I was actually driving back on the 2nd, and Ben hit me up and was like, "Hey, don't forget, I need a thumbnail for the show tonight." And so I was already headed to the studio, and I stopped in the studio, and I sat and basically probably annoyed Colleen as I sat there like with my laptop trying to knock this out. And we had just seen the Fast and the Furious, and it was so just goofy, like the ride, the attraction at Universal. And it was just him hanging from the helicopter, it was so goofy to me. And so I think I actually took this picture because the Skyliner had just opened, and I took a bunch of photos while we were doing the Skyliner crawl. And so I just thought it would be funny for some reason to have Vin Diesel hanging from the Skyliner the same way that he was hanging
the helicopter,
hanging from the helicopter. Yeah. So I don't know. I just but it just amused me so much. And there have been a couple of the thumbnails for Park Center that, just the bit made me laugh so much, but then I don't know if anybody else thinks it's funny.
No, it's a good bit. Because that's like the main promotional image for everything is him hanging off of this helicopter, and then you go on the ride, and the helicopter is like, I don't know, like half the size of a regular helicopter, and it looks so stupid.
Yeah, Courtney said in chat, it's surprisingly easy to find a picture of Vin Diesel hanging off of something.
Probably.
Yeah.
What's that hotel? What's the hotel in the background?
That's the Riviera, the new one.
Oh, okay. It's a DVC hotel. In other words, go away, Tyler.
No, you can book rooms there.
Oh, you
can book rooms there.
I thought DVC rooms are like only for DVC members. Oh, well.
No, you can book in DVC. There are some things that are off limits on DVC, and this doesn't need to be a DVC conversation. But like there are like the 3-bedroom villas usually are DVC only. But even in DVC resorts, you like Saratoga Springs is a DVC resort, but you can book rooms there. So there are some that are held off for regular reservations. But it's a neat resort, and it's got there are just amazing views of it from the Skyliner, and it does have its own Skyliner stop, which is I think where the crash happened, was in that Skyliner stop because of the curves.
Well, if I want to stay at a completely white room, I'll just go to Aperture Science, I guess. No, that doesn't make sense. Oh no, that makes sense. Okay, well, well, speaking of Vin Diesel, Herbie gets furious. By the way, I watched Blackbeard's Ghost for like not a Deep in the Plus. We were reviewing like old Disney movies. I don't remember what it was, but anyways, I watched Blackbeard's Ghost, and then when I saw that Dean Jones was in the Herbie movies as well, I'm like, oh, it's like the same guy. He's in all these Disney movies. That's weird. But then like Emily Blunt is in like 6 Disney movies right now. But there's a photo of Vin, like when I looked up Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious, it's him like on the side of a car steering it while he's like hanging out of the door, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could make this work. And I think this looks pretty darn good, to be completely honest. I had to paint out parts of his arm and then paint back in parts of his arm. But then like, because I added a noise filter, you can barely tell, except that like his forearm looks way too long for his hand. But other than that, like this turned out pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
I also had to like color correct Herbie because Herbie's like yellow in the original movies, but like in the Lindsay Lohan one, it's completely white and like sleek. So that's like the old version of Herbie, and I had to like desaturate it to get it to look like that. I don't know.
Well, it's
like,
supposed to be white. It's not
Herbie
supposed to be yellow. I mean, it may just be aged film, but it's supposed to be white. Herbie's color is always supposed to be white.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably just like bad film quality or bad photo. And then yeah, the font I think I actually recreated from scratch. It's just a matter of getting the color and the shape right. It's not like the same font, but it's close enough. You get the idea.
Yeah, for sure. So there were 2 of these. One of them. So this was one where we were celebrating the logo for the 50th anniversary had just come out, and we wanted to put it up and show people what it was and what it looked like, because we were talking about it on the show that night. But because I thought that was kind of cool, this was episode 74 that we did. When we did episode 75, I was like, oh, well, our logo should look like that too. So basically ripped that off, and this is what the thumbnail looked like for the 75th one. And because again, I just thought it would be neat to do, so I kind of cloned out the background where it had said 50 and then tried to mimic the font and put it in there. I'm actually, what do you think of the 50th logo, Tyler, from a design standpoint?
It's okay. I mean, the rest of the lines for 50 sort of blend in with the rest of the castle, but also like, I mean, that's the shape of the castle, sort of, but there's not a lot of like room on it to actually do anything with it. Like, I would not have picked the font for the 50 either. I would have probably picked something taller so it covered that whole area.
I'm like 90% sure that the font for the 50th is the same font that they used for the 30th of Studios. Like, I'm almost 100% sure it's the exact same font as what they used for Studios 30th, which means they were working on probably both at the same time.
It looks like you know how they have that same Tomorrowland font like everywhere, like the Disney Cruise Line has it, and my hairdresser across the street has it. Like, I'm pretty sure it's that font, because the shape of that 5 looks very reminiscent to like the way like an R looks in that font, like the Meet the Robinsons type R. Yeah, someone's chat's like the iridescence is cool. Yeah, the sort of like rainbowy, glittery kind of thing. But I don't know. It's not. I don't like it when a 0 is like half the size of the other number. I don't know why that's an aesthetic.
Just curious.
Why? Did I do something I don't know about? No, oh my God. This was so hard. Okay, well, Shornfarsh is probably going to be very happy in the chat with all the bobsled training references. So if you don't know, the original design for the Matterhorn, I think, when it was going to be at Epcot, the story would have been that you're entering a secret Swiss bobsled training facility. which was absurd. And I think we Samina says company approved font. So yeah, the joke was Secret Swiss Family Robinson Bobcat training facility, and I think I had to go back and forth. I'm like, is Bobcat like a real Bobcat or like one of the yellow construction trucks? And they're like, it's a real Bobcat. And I'm like, okay, is there a Bobcat in this movie? And then I got no answer back. So like, I just had to guess what this was. And I'm like, okay. And then I think like a few days later, Tom was like, yeah, just put one of the family Robinsons riding a Bobcat. And I'm like, okay. And then I had to scroll through the movie like 2 hours just to find an image of one of the characters, at least relatively looking like they're sitting. And there's this, I've never seen Swiss Family Robinson before. So as I'm scrolling through this movie, I'm like, boy, there's a lot of shirtless men in this movie. Like 90% of this movie is a bunch of shirtless guys walking around doing next to nothing.
They're on a deserted island.
Okay, so... and then there's this random sequence.
Tom Hanks wasn't wearing a shirt in Castaway, right?
Well,
sorry,
yeah, but like...
Go ahead. I'm ruining your bit. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Disney has a lot of shirtless characters. And then like, yeah, there's this random scene where they're like, they've captured an ostrich and like a baby elephant, and they're all just racing them. Like they made a day out of it. They're like, everyone, I'm going to put out some burgers on the patio and we'll all have a little race. And this kid is like riding an ostrich and he keeps falling off of it. And I'm like, this is the closest thing I'm going to get. So I grabbed this image. Well, for one thing, he's like wearing a turban or like a chef's hat or something. And I just grabbed this image, and you can see how bad like the pants look because I had to paint that in. Like I grabbed half an image essentially. And then I just painted in the rest, and it looks terrible. But I'm like, you're going to see it for 8 seconds on News Tonight. Like, this is honestly the best I could do. And then I made a touchstone, which was a mistake because the actual movie originally was Walt Disney. But I just assumed that this would be like a more adult film. And that's what Touchstone was normally for. It was like when Disney had something that was too adult. Like Roger Rabbit was Touchstone, but now it says Disney because they're cowards. Jesus, I shouldn't say that. No, like Nightmare Before Christmas was Touchstone Pictures because they thought it was too scary for Walt Disney Pictures. But then when they redistributed it, they're like, Touchstone doesn't matter. Let's make it Disney. Let's pretend that we always produced it the whole time, even though it was a completely separate film company. Anyways. So yeah, I grabbed an image of a bobcat and stuck this kid on it. And then that's the trios from the movie. That's all. And someone else in the chat is just pointing out shirtless Disney characters. There it is.
So
it's Tom Corliss and Lil Ben.
That's not Lil Ben. So this was one that I made the two of them holding hands at some point. And I don't even. Oh, it was because they were doing a watch along. They were doing an event at the Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor at Halloween, and they were going to be in there watching it all night long. And so I thought it would be funny because he was always referring to him as the boy. If it was if he was a little kid, and and Tom was holding his hand and walking him through the park. And so I made that graphic originally, and then somebody put up this like. I think that randomly I decided to also make a partner statue out of it because then that was not my original intent, but it kind of worked that way. And I put in chat just randomly, like, this is the new partner statue. And then when the partner's phone case came out, I threw that in there too. So this was another one of those things that like, I think they might have shown on the show, but it was not asked for. It was just something that I already had the graphic, and it just made me laugh to put it in over the partners. And I think this actually took some work to get the partners painted out of this to then put them into it so that you didn't see Walt and Mickey. But I just, I thought it looked pretty good. Like I would buy this phone case. I thought it, I thought it kind of popped.
Can I just say, this is, you edited something out and put this in, right? Because it looks like a real phone case.
Sometimes it's like
the color and the blur, like it looks like something Disney would. Well, the blur is like to make it look like the photo is realistic, but it looks completely real. And I genuinely, when I saw this, I'm like, is that actually what the phone case looks like? And someone's like, no, he made it. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do that and it looks too good. And I think we talked about this on the last show, where you do something that looks too good, and then people are like, well, did you do that practically, or does that actually exist? And you wonder if maybe the joke doesn't land, and it would have been funnier had it looked a little cheesier. But you never know. Like sometimes, like the magnet thing we talked about earlier, like it was out of proportion and that was a problem, and maybe it needed to have been closer to real, but it would have actually looked like it was on that car. And so it's a give and take. But I'm glad that it looks real. I mean, that was kind of the whole point, right? Speaking of trying to look real.
Yeah, exactly. What was this for? Was this for the Christmas? Yeah, this was for Tony's Christmas special. They gave me a bunch of, they're like, hey, this was like the day before. And they're like, hey, we bought a bunch of microwavable food. Can you Photoshop fake labels for us to put on it? And I'm like, oh my gosh, because that was like, for a day before, like that's so much work just to make it look authentic. So these are real labels that they took photos of them, and then I replicated the background and everything else like to a T, and then I just changed the text so it says, and then that was all totally up to me. So for example, we have fake Italian since 1989, pepperoni pizza or whatever made with 100% fake synthetic cheese, sauce made from fake tomatoes. Like that's all the same color and font style as the actual image. Like the one in the top right I can actually just say is Michelina's. And flavor, nope. Value, you bet. Macaroni in quotes, and then cheese in double quotes, and then like that's the actual image of the macaroni, but just like matching the same colors and the font, so it looks as real as possible. And that bit, I think, was one of the things I was most proud of, because when they printed it and taped it to the actual things, it looked so real. Like from a distance, it's very hard to tell. Tony Fresh veggie meat. I enjoyed putting everything in quotes. Made with some vegetables and a bunch of other stuff. Disgusting Bavarian ripoff inside an overcooked bread ball. 7-pack.
Well, that's one of the fun things, though, isn't it? Like going in and making it, like making those little details. And again, that yes. People may or may not see, but that's, I think, one of the things that that you and I both love about Disney and Imagineering, and the details that they put into things is the little hidden things that are in there, and some people may not notice, but when people notice it, it's kind of cool and fun. And I just love those little details, and I like going. I mean, sometimes I have more fun doing that than I do the actual design stuff, because it's like, I feel like it just adds to the gag.
Tony Pizza for one. I'm being told in the chat that these are still in the freezer.
I was just about to say these are still in the freezer. I do, in fact, still have
the labels on?
Yeah, they wouldn't let me throw them out.
Somebody needs to do like a fake like unboxing of these, like, hey everyone, I just bought a whole ton of Tony food and we're gonna eat it here on stream. Drop a subscribe for me and Twitch, like replicating like one of those mukbang videos where they're just eating a bunch of food, but it's all like fake Tony's food. That'd be hilarious.
I'm gonna go get them, and I'll turn a camera on so people can see them, because they really do look amazing.
Nice.
In the meantime, if you have any questions, I refuse to throw them out. If you have any questions about graphic design or making, illustrations, graphics, logos, drop them in the chat. If you have any graphics you want us to review, we're not gonna do that.
What?
No, that would be like legitimately. If you want like advice or suggestions or anything, I don't know. Can people contact us? Should they contact us?
Sure.
I don't know.
I
Throw
mean,
it up.
Sure.
Send it to us on Twitter. Be like, what do you think of this? And we'll be like, cool.
I think it's a little too early in the morning for Tyler.
It is very early in the morning. I mean, I went to bed at 4 a.m. because it was just very hot. I'm trying to edit this thing for Friday. Can we talk about what we're doing this week? Like you do how do you pronounce it? Discabulary.
Yes, discabulary. Well, there is going to be one, but I mean, you have to wait till Thursday night to find out what it is.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, can we like tease stuff or whatever we're working on? Every week, like we each work, like we have recurring bits, like incorrect Disney Plus Discabulary now. And then there's always some additional bit of some kind. And we were always like the day after the show, like Friday, is when they drop when these are like what these are, and then I think we spent a day trying to figure out what they're going to be before we start working on them. So like we basically like there they are. It's show and tell. Oh my god,
that turned out really nice.
They don't line up 100%, but they look pretty darn real. Yeah. Flavor? Nope. Like that one like lines up almost perfectly, but it's just the top section. But gosh, that looks perfect. What's the original name on that one? Celeste? Who is that? Who is she? That's my dragon. Celeste is
Mama
my dragon
Celeste.
name. Veggie meatballs. What's the original name on that one? It's on the side. Himalaya Fresh. I've never heard of these food brands. I just saw the comments.
They're all from the dollar store.
Oh. They sell frozen foods at the dollar store?
Yeah.
Bread balls.
Frozen vanilla bread balls. Wow. That sounds
well, they were like
awful.
Cream puffs or like I don't remember what the original name of them were.
Yeah.
French bread, pepperoni pizza. Did I make the microwave bit at the top? No, I don't think I made that. One expensive bit. Nothing says fresh like the Himalayas. Tony Olay. Okay, so we did the Halloween special and Tom was dressed as Tony. So when it came time for the Christmas special, I took a screenshot of there was one point in the Halloween one where he was just sitting there and aimlessly playing the squeeze box or whatever that's called. He was just sitting there and he's like
accordion.
And that's the accordion. Yes. I could not think of the word. Squeeze box is a term for an accordion, right? So he was just sitting there doing that. And that's the screenshot I grabbed. And then I just photoshopped a smile and I drew that. Like I drew over that screenshot of him. And then that's how we got the Christmas logo. And then for that one, I just put a sombrero on his head, made it say Tony Olay. I forget what the original name of that food was, but it had Olay in it. I think it was the name. I don't remember. Colleen, do you still have it? Or is she putting it away? She's probably putting it away.
What?
What was the Tony Olay? What was the original name of that food?
I don't know. I put it away.
Okay, that's fine. Squeeze box. Squeeze box.
It was a burrito. That's all that you need to know.
It was a dollar store burrito.
So, this was a thumbnail that we did for Park Center, and I think that the thumbnail really kind of like got your attention. Yeah, on this one. So this one was one of the highest clicked episodes of Park Center, and you know it kind of has, I guess, a little bit of a clickbait kind of a thing to it. I mean, that was not the intention. The idea was that, you know, this is right after we announced that Spaceship Earth was closing. And so I think it happened the day we were doing the show. And so we were scrambling to try to put something together and get it out there. And a lot of times we'll do something just because it makes me laugh a little bit. And so I put the big, like, sorry, we're closed on the top of it. And it pops visually so well that I think it really stood out when people were, we're going through YouTube. And again, it really kind of speaks to the fact that a YouTube thumbnail a lot of times you have to tell the entire story very quickly in a thumbnail to get people to click on it. Obviously, the headline is going to be something that's important and searchable and helps people to find it. But yeah, I thought the visual of that one was pretty strong when we put it together, and it kind of took off. So, and then for April Fool's Day this year, because Park Center was on a Wednesday, and April Fool's Day was on a Wednesday, and we do try to theme our shows when they land that way. Ben, I think, might have had the idea to do Pete's Center and have Pete run the show. So for just that one episode, I created this logo and had it on all of the visuals we did, the thumbnail, the Instagram graphics, everything had Pete's Center on it. And then when you tuned in for the show, Pete was in the very center. And I think we were talking about March Madness on it, but Pete ran the show for the first time in the history of Park Center. It was the first time that Ben was not running the show. So, but Ben was on it. He was on as a panelist, and it was a lot of fun. But it was neat to recreate this logo for that.
Did you have the font for Park Center still, or did you grab like the ET and then the S from the rest of the logo and then just move it around?
So the Park Center logo predates me. Like, I didn't create the Park Center logo, but we never had like a full like vector image of it. And so since we do things like, print it on different things or have it available on TeePublic, I wanted to make sure that there was a high resolution version of it. So I went back in and recreated the logo from scratch. So just finding a new font. So I have that so that I can manipulate it and do things like that Pete Center. So originally it was just a blurry raster image, and I went in and redid all the lines, made the globe in the middle. The whole layout is brand new. So but it's pretty much exactly like the original. It's just now we have a high resolution version of it that we can do whatever we want to with it, including making joke logos like the Pete Center one.
Colleen's Craft Corner. So I did not actually draw that on the left. That was Thomas, who does all the artwork for Ride Rehab. If you've never seen the Ride Rehab covers, every episode that we do every month, we have a different drawing, like an illustration of what we talked about in the episode. So Tom's a lot faster at drawing than me, but also he's better at getting facial expressions or drawing people. It's very hard for me to actually replicate a person's face unless I trace over it. So I thought this would be a good one for Tom to do. So I was like, hey Tom, I outsource my work sometimes. So I was like, Tom, Colleen's Craft Corner. He's like, what do you want? I'm like, just show Colleen covered in craft material. And then he did this, and we sent it to Colleen, and Colleen's like, I love it. And so that ended up being a little I don't know, it felt like each show, when you're doing WDWNT live, it every show needed some kind of graphic, and especially when it was represented by a person, like Cooking with Nick, for example. You have Nick in the van, and I felt like that it was just a little bit plain without the illustration, just to have the logo. So I wanted to add a little something extra to it, just to show off that it is Colleen's show. Like I did Cooking with Tyler, so I just drew myself, or I had the illustration of myself already. I made it into a chef's one. But I felt like this one needed to show Colleen doing crafts, and I think this is I think it's super cute, and it matches the aesthetic and what the show is.
Those stickers, although I know what they are, definitely give me Twister vibes. Like the Twister, the game,
the background.
Yeah, those stickers that are on the bottom below her and below her play. I mean, I get I know what those are, but it's definitely giving me left hand blue, right hand green type of vibe. So, sorry.
the background is so there is places where you can get free stock images, high quality. One of them is called Burst. I think it's burst.shopify.com. It's just a ton of photographers took a lot of, these are called lay flats, when you have like a top-down view of a bunch of items all put together on a table. So I just looked up crafts, and this came up, and it's super high quality, and it was very like color oriented around like red, and I'm like, well, that'll match good against the yellow of the logo. So I put those two together, and yeah, so that's on the background of all the Colleen's Craft Corner shareable images, because it's, you know, it's got a little bit of everything in it.
Amina says, "Are those sugar dot candies?" Yes, definitely those sugar dot candies. I love those.
Yeah, eat those.
Where you eat them off the paper? Yeah. So the reason I put this one in there is that there was a time a long time ago where we were having some technical difficulties, and somebody said, I can't remember if somebody requested it. I think maybe they did, and said we need a please stand by graphic so that when we're having problems, we can put it up. And so I created this about a year ago, maybe more. And but I loved like adding the little, like I talked about before, like the little details. And a lot of times you may not look in and see that this looks like a Mickey in the background. Like I assume that people get that vibe from it, or that we use the WDWNT logo, the globe on the lower left-hand side. So, I mean, this was supposed to look like a standard test pattern, please stand by type of a situation. And I created this and I put it out there, and it was something that I made on the fly and put it out. And then, you know, I do so many graphics for everything that I do that I sometimes when I move from one computer to another, or I'm doing something at my office computer or doing something on my MacBook, I don't know where I left it because I was doing it in a hurry. And so when I created this one, I think it was like 6 months later, somebody was like, hey, we need a please stand by graphic. And I'm like, I made one of those, but I don't know where it is. Like,
that happens a lot.
I feel like it's somewhere and somebody used it, and then all of a sudden it just kind of popped up again. So when I was looking through and saw this and found it, I was like, well, now I will always know where it is. But again, I'd like, it's something that you're not normally hopefully going to see if everything's going okay. But when it does, like this comes up, you know, I don't know. I think it looks pretty good. So I wanted to share it.
I wish I knew more about like, because there are graphics that are actually like this, and I'm like, what are all of these arrows and stuff? But I'm sure it has something to do with like, never mind, I can't talk, forget it. It's got to do with like how you make like it's early. Broadway. I was asked to make a graphic for Broadway. I cheated with this one. I already had I used to run a musical theater group. Wait, what was that, Rob? You cut out a bit. Pete just started screaming and now doesn't exist. Okay, well, until he comes back. I used to run a musical theater group called Fan Musicals, and we did a sort of like a cabaret type show. Calibration. Thank you, Sharon Forsh. It has to do something with camera calibration. That's the word I was looking for, but could not think of. But yeah, we did a cabaret type like concert performance, and I made a logo that was this basically, except I just changed the text and I changed the color style, because like I did it and then Colleen's like, hey, can you make it look exactly like this instead? And then I think there was an argument in Slack because they're like, it's a one-time show, but I think we've done it 2 or 3 times at this point, so I guess it's come in handy. But yeah, I'm like, what says Broadway? Flashing lights, big old like Hollywood type letters on a marquee. Anyways, and then this color design is what she wanted to go with. Wolf Den. This was unique in that Eric, who runs the Wolf Den, Eric Wolf, he came to me with exactly what he wanted. He was like, hey, I need a graphic, and to help out with it, I sort of drew it already. And he had drawn in like pencil, crayon, and marker like what he wanted. And he's like, can you just like replicate this? I'm like, absolutely. So I just sort of like went over the shapes that he like roughed out, and I picked the Mickey Mouse font that's available and free. And yeah, he's like, when I showed it to him, he's like, this is exactly what I wanted. Thank you. Which is very, very rare to actually happen when you're doing a graphic. But it's also like rare for me to be given like a complete direction that somebody wants, or like exactly like what they want, just like roughed out. And it's like, can you just do this and make it digital? That rarely happens. So it was very quick and it was very fun. And if you're going to watch Wolf Den this Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, basically, we have a fun little activity I did some graphic stuff for. Can't really share what it is yet, but took a lot. Me and Eric were in like a Zoom chat yesterday trying to figure out, like, I'm just drawing for him and he's like, no, like this. And I'm like, okay. And then I did it. He's like, good, perfect. So tune in tomorrow. We're going to do a fun activity involving Disney parks and sort of park maps. So come check it out because it will be really fun. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. What else we got? I guess Rob is going to be here to talk about how much this graphic changed from the original.
Rob? He's kind of like a stop motion moving. There he is.
You okay, Rob?
Is it back? I'm still seeing the wolf.
Yeah, it sounds good.
I'm okay. Yeah, my internet's not working particularly well. Every now and then it will drop out, and I want to run out to the neighborhood and tell everybody just to stop, so that it doesn't mess up. So, so this graphic right here is one of those that I talked about last week, where sometimes that I will just do a graphic and I'm really excited about it, and then I'll decide that I will, whoever requested it, that I'll throw this in chat and say, hey, here's the graphic, and just make a bad one. Like this was like the bad one, because the request was we were doing the WDWNT does the Skyliner, and it was going to be a commercial about all this kind of all these parodies of music having to do with the Skyliner. And so the request was to make it look like the Now That's What I Call Music CDs. And instead, I just decided to, before I put out the other one, to put this one out just to see what the reaction would be. And I think Jessica was like, this isn't really what we had in mind. She was trying to be super nice about it. And then I felt bad. And I was like, oh, you mean like this? And I threw the other one in. So the other one, this was...
now that's great.
It's a little better, right? I mean, it's a little better than the other one. But yeah, I
this
went
is
in
recognizable.
And
like I know exactly what this is. Like it's an album of music because it's That's What I Call, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, so it's like the big word where it says WDWNT is supposed to say now, and then in the middle say That's What I Call, and then at the bottom it says music. And so, yeah, I tried to replicate that, and then I made like, did the paint splatter thing behind it, used a photo from like that was an official Disney photo of the Skyliner or that we had, and then just kind of graded out a little bit the same way that the CDs have kind of got that multi-tone thing going. So yeah, it was fun to put together, but again, for some reason, I don't know what it is, a warped sense of humor. I just thought it would be funny to put a really bad one out there first to see what the reaction was, and then like drop the real one.
That was great. Can I say something really quick about the Skyliner and their like graphics on the outside? I used to work at Legoland Discovery Center in Toronto. Horrible. There's a ride, it's just a spinner, and it has like some seats, and there's like a wizard hat on the back, and half the seats were green and half the seats were blue. And every time a kid would go on, they'd be like, no, I want to sit on the blue one. And then like the ride's full, so the parent mom would be like, I guess we'll wait for the next one, just so the kid can sit in a car that's blue instead of green. Like, is it annoying with the Skyliner when they're all different designs? Like, I want to ride on the Elsa one. Like, does that happen? Chat,
I'm sure
if you
it
have
does.
kids and you've ridden the Skyliner, please tell me if your kid cares that much about which Skyliner gondola car they sit in based on the graphic on the outside.
See, we talked about this before, though. The problem is, like, when Disney World had the Sky Ride inside of Magic Kingdom, basically the Skyliner 1.0. You know, and it's the same kind of like off the shelf that most places that do, you know, they have this thing that you can, you know, you ride over the park. And I think it was bad show because you could see the roof, the roof of every building, and it didn't look good. But so I loved having it, but I also kind of hated that it was there. But I always wanted to ride a blue one, and so like I get that. But the problem that is, I think, as a little kid, you don't notice is you don't realize that if you're riding in the blue one, you're not seeing the blue one. Everyone else is seeing the blue one. You're seeing, you know, so if you're riding in that car with that graphic, you don't see that graphic. I mean, you can kind of sort of see the backside of it. Like the inside of it is not themed at all. And so I feel like if you want to see like the Coco, you know, mural, you should ride in the one before or after it so that you can look at it the whole time. But it doesn't feel that way when you're a little kid. You're like, I want the frozen one. I want the frozen one. I mean, that's what I yell at every time when I'm getting in one.
The few times I've been on the Skyliner, I have not seen that happen. They're really trying to like get you on as fast as possible in your groups. And I would suggest riding one that doesn't have a graphic on it, because then you can see.
That's the irony. That's the irony, is the ones with the graphics you cannot get good pictures out of because, or even see out of as clearly because even though the graphics is, So it actually, the very first one that I ever rode on didn't have any graphic on it, because I was thinking as it was coming up, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to remember the very first time I stepped on the Skyliner. It was like the day it opened, what color or which character I'm in, and I got in the yellow one. That was the theme, yellow. It had no character on it at all, and I was, for a minute I was kind of bummed. But it's a gorgeous view when you're in one without the sticker on it. So
I once asked to sit in a people mover car that had the cone in it, and they said no. This was I mean, I thought this was going to be a one-off joke, but it ended up becoming a 4-episode thing that might actually continue somehow. That's our WDWNT flag. Just edited that out, made it golden colored so it matched sort of the Universal font color, which is this like golden sort of metal. And then I think that that's the actual Universal like globe. They have a version of the Universal logo that's like flat and just like simple shapes, and so that's just the globe from that. And then the Universal font, which is Copperplate Gothica, a font everyone uses all the time everywhere. Stop using Copperplate Gothica, folks. That and Grobold, which is that cartoon font everyone is always using. I could just make a list of fonts that people use way too much.
You know what? Yeah, the one for me is Comic Sans. Like Comic Sans is the one that everyone uses, because if you've got the basic fonts on your computer and you're using Word or PowerPoint, it's the one that most people go to. And the other one that I always use
unironically.
But people are. And the other one that drives me crazy is Papyrus, and yet it's like basically the Avatar font. So
yeah, that spawned the SNL sketch. That's my favorite thing, which is a guy going, I think it was Ryan Gosling going crazy and unable to sleep because somewhere out there's a graphic designer who just used the Papyrus font and added a glow to it. And his like wife doesn't understand, and he like stalks this man outside his house. He's like, I know what you did. If you haven't seen it, look it up. The sketch is just called Papyrus, and it's an SNL sketch, and it's so funny.
When I would hire digital people, I would ask them, I would say, hey, what's your favorite font? And so if they would say Comic Sans or Papyrus, those were the only wrong answers.
Somebody pointed out the comic font that I used on the Wolf Den before. It's very rare for me to have paid for a font, but in that case, like I used to use this awful sort of like typewriter type font for my comics. And then I spoke to like a comics consultant one time, and he's like, not only do I want you to not use this typewriter font, I want you to delete it from your computer. Go to this website. I think it was called Blambot, and they sell comic fonts. And it's stuff like this. It looks like it's handwritten, or it's that Comic Sans style, but it's just better. And they were having a sale, and it was like $12. And I use it for all my comics now. I do write and illustrate comics, and Eric wanted like a comic type font and a comic bubble. So I'm like, this is the font I'm using. So yeah, like sometimes you got to pay for a font. And if it's something you're going to be using all the time, $12 is not that much money for a font at all. But there are places like dafont.com, DAFONT.com, and they have fonts that people make that are available for free, or they're what's called donationware, which is like you pay any amount of money you think that this person should get for making this font, sort of like a pay what you want for their work. So yeah, that's what I do when I'm trying to replicate like a Disney thing. I will make sure it's a font, because if we're like selling it, for example, like the People Mover one, like I had to make sure that was a free font. It was 100% free, or it's just, there's no like copyright attributes on it. Like you can use it without having to pay for it, for example, or if you're selling something like a commercial use. Anyways, what's the next one?
Hey, I did that one.
Hey.
So I was very excited about this one because I loved Pleasure Island, and when we were doing the Stage 89 event, they, the request came for a logo, and this was not the original name of it, but then it changed to this. So I had done another logo first, and then I put this together. And again, this is all built in Vector, so every bit of this is Vector artwork and could be used and created in any size, shape, billboard, or postage stamp. And so when I put it together, the response was pretty positive. And so Tom said in chat at the time, like, hey, Jason, this should be a pin. And I was so excited. Like, Tyler, I know you make your own pins for Ride Rehab and things like that, but I'd never had like something I did become a pin. And I was just like, this is, again, like I said, I've done, van wraps for vans that ride, that drive around town and have our radio stations on them, but I've never had basically the equivalent of a Disney pin. And for some reason, that was just like the best thing ever, that this was going to be made into a pin. So I have
Colin,
a few.
Can we bring up the video? Or like our videos, I mean?
What video?
Like our cameras.
Oh, you want to look at you.
Yes.
Hey!
There's one.
There it is. And Alicia had one.
There we go.
Alicia had hers on her new pin board that she put on Instagram, so I was excited about that one too. But yeah, and there's that same pin back. You can't really see that pattern in the back from the video, but
yeah, it's very subtle. But yeah, these came out absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about that one. I
like
couldn't wait to bring them back.
On the wall here, just because I don't want to like take them out. They look so good. Oh, there we go. Just hanging up there like that instead.
Cool.
It's a really good logo.
Something I made lives in Canada. Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
Party with Pete. Oh my God, I went back and forth so many times with Pete trying to figure out what he wanted. That font, I think it's the same as the Mission Breakout font. I don't know. I already had that font and I was like, yeah, brush style font. The illustrations that you're seeing are Tom made those. Pete sent me this photo of him in like, he went to Disney Springs and he tried on this like rave outfit. It was a sweater and matching pants that was like that color scheme exactly. And I'm like, Tom, can I Party with Pete should have like an illustration, because once again it's Pete, it's him specifically as the host of the show. It should have some kind of illustration. So I'm like, Pete, here's what I'm thinking. You in a bunch of different dance poses, and it flashes and changes. So I told Tom, I'm like, just draw Pete in 3 of these 3 different poses, and so that's the one that cycles through on this loop. And we make looping animations because, like, for example, when a show is getting ready to start, you want there to be some kind of animation. Like it doesn't look visually appealing to have a static image. So for all the WDWNT live stuff, we tried to have some kind of looping animation that would repeat every 30 seconds just until the show got started. And in that case, Pete picked out a song, and then I used some motion video stuff in the background to make that. But yeah, that's another thing that Tom did illustrations of that turned out fantastic.
So
what is this? Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, so they came out with some bread ears, and Tom was like, we need to do our own bread ears. And so it was this whole list of all of these different breads that needed to be made into ears. And so it was like, the bread service at Sanaa and like pretzels and all kinds of things. So that was one of those weird things where I'm going to try to find different headbands and different bows and then put them together and then put them in front of the places where they're supposed to be. And it was a lot of fun to do, and it was really sort of like on the fly, but it was there were so many of these. I think we did about a dozen of them in different types of breads. And Tom is so good at knowing like every specific bread at different places and where the good ones were and like different types and which ones would look good and all that kind of stuff. And so he's giving me this list, and a lot of them like I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. And so I would like kind of like Google around, try to find those pictures of those breads and put it out there and go, is this it? Is this the one? And it's like, no, well, that's not quite it, or whatever. But the idea of like throwing together about a dozen pairs of ears that all represent bread was a tough challenge, but it was also a lot of fun. And that was another one of those that I couldn't wait to see how it played out on air.
Yeah, that's one of those bits where it's like, hey, we need 7 or 10 different images of different bread, like a gag image of some kind.
Yeah, but he was very specific about like they need to be these, and so we put them together. I think I used like the pretzel sticks at Canada as like and made them sort of into an Oswald hat, because it kind of made more sense that way. So I had leeway on what they looked like. It was just like it needs to be this bread.
Oh, somebody in chat was asking about Locked In. There it is. That was another thing where Eric was like. It was his show. I was Locked In with Eric Morton, so he was the host, and I'm like, let's do a sort of illustration. He's like, can you draw me locked into the jail cell from Pirates, and the dog holding the key is my dog Butters? And I'm like, yeah. And then I just like brought him onto whatchamacallit. I brought him onto like Zoom, and I was just like sketching. I'm like, is this what you want? He's like, this is perfect. And then for the looping animation, I was like, send me a video of Butters barking. And then I animated, I just swapped that head with a different head where his mouth is open. So he just goes arf every once in a while. Can we get the audio for that? There it is. Okay, yeah, we can cut the audio now. But yeah, that's an actual audio of Butters barking. But yeah, that's actual audio of Butters barking, and I just layered that in and made the arm move back and forth, and then some stock video of a smoke and particle effect. But yeah, that was like you have to, for animation, you have to rig stuff. So like that arm is on its own layer, and then underneath is like the same pattern, so that when the arm moves, it doesn't like look like it's detached from his body. And then his head is on a different layer, because then there was a version where Eric is not in the jail, and it's called Locked In with Butters, and it was just like a Butters takeover show. So I had to like make sure everything was drawn on its own individual layers, which is why the jail cell bar is like a little bit wonky. Or what's the word I used before? A little bit
janky.
Janky. Oh, there's the Butter, just with Butters. So yeah, Eric is just not in there. Somebody says this song slaps, and that's the same music for Jumble Cruise, by the way, because it's very like bongo-y kind of thing.
Oh boy. So this was another one. I really had a lot of fun with it. It's like, you know, sometimes like my wife will go like, what are you doing and what's going on and what's happening? And I'm just like, this is important. This has to happen. This is something that we need to do. So this was right after the Skyliner, like you know, all of the images have been revealed, and we went in and made, I just made a ton of these. And I think some of them may have been requested and some of them I just also threw in. But this was one where I couldn't get a picture of Tom, so I got one of Cornac, and Cornac was I forget what exactly Cornac was doing, but then I was like, oh, this would be perfect to go with the genie, and you know, because it has kind of an Aladdin vibe. And it actually, I think, turned out pretty well, like pretty good. Like it looks like he's like reaching out of the vehicle. So it was a matter of taking, and all of them were different. Like I didn't use the same red cab and like make all of the illustration or all of the Skyliner is the same. I got different views of different Skyliners and just whatever we had access to at the time for images, because I think again this was when they were still in like test mode, so it was, you know, reporters were going out and taking a lot of pictures, and so I just took every one that I could possibly find to give a different look to. So there was one that had Nick in it, and there was one, you know, just one for like every member of the cast, and then there was one that had Bob Chapek in it. But again, I really like the way that this one turned out because it actually looks like it has depth to it, like that there's something bigger going on, almost like a TARDIS sort of a situation, like inside of this large Skyliner. So, and then the whole idea of like the, you know, the lamp coming out of it was a lot of fun too. So. Looking at it now, like staring at it, I see imperfections that's driving me crazy. But other than that, I mean, it was a lot of fun to do that. And we did some others with like the toys too. When the toys came out with the Skyliners that were, you know, this is what I think the request was. Let's make one that looks like the new covering over Slinky Dog. I mean, weird, like if it was attached to a Skyliner. So Skyliners were definitely a lot of bits around the Skyliner and a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, Scott was like, I want to do a Let's Play type show where we play Disney type video games, and he was like, I made a logo, and I'm like, oh okay. And it was like sort of a play on the WDWNT Parks Play, whatever that app is called. What is that app called?
It's just called Play. I mean, it's the Play app for
Disney Play app, yeah. Yeah. So ours has the little WDWNT globe in the middle of it, though. And then I made that looping animation, which was just a cool like pixel background, 8-bit type music in the back, and yeah, it just continues to rotate and loop around like that. Looks pretty cool. I've seen this ad so much.
Oh my gosh, this was another one that I had. Like, it was one where Nathan was doing the commercial for. I think he was like running point on this. I don't know if he came up with the concept or not, but the smoking characters breakfast, and it was when they were trying to change the smoking rules of the parks and, you know, taking out the smoking areas from inside the parks. And so the idea was that there was a, you know, if you still like to smoke, that you can go to the smoking characters breakfast. And it was like, hey, let's find all the characters who smoke. And so some of them were suggested, and I think maybe like I can't remember if the Caterpillar was one that I pulled out of it, but it was going back and trying to find these characters and then like putting them, like cleaning them up and then putting them in here and making it look like they all like were kind of together. That's the thing too, is like, you know, taking things from, you know, from 4 different places and bring them together and make it look like they actually belong together. So it was a matter of resizing them and creating the depth of Cruella's in the back because she's the biggest, and, you know, maybe the Caterpillar's in the front because he's the smallest and he's up higher. And, you know, so it was still a little bit rough when I put it together, but when I put it together originally, I didn't have the background in it. And then it was like, no, it needs to be like, it's, you know, like an actual character breakfast. So I put the background in and like, then did like a haze around the room. I was really excited about the way like the sign itself came out. That was like the thing I worked on the most. And then after they were all in place, they just had their cigarettes, and Nathan was like, "Oh, it needs to look like they have like they're actually smoking." And I do think that added a lot to it. So I went in and added smoke to each individual, each individual cigar and cigarette. It was a funny commercial, but it was a lot of fun to make the graphic.
Look how miserable everyone looks in this background photo, though. Club Cool, that was a thing that cropped up randomly. What basically, I guess I could tell the story of how that came to be, was somebody was like, we found a video of Drake Bell. He was showing off like all his Disney merchandise, and we're like, wow, we should like get in touch with Drake Bell, who's the voice of Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man. He was Drake and Josh in the Amanda Show. He's a singer and songwriter right now. And so we reached out to him, and then the chance to interview him came up. They're like, who would like to get a chance to speak to him? And sort of as a joke, I was like, I'll do it. Because, I had a crush on him when I was younger. And then they're like, Alicia's like, I'll do it too. And then they're like, cool, Tyler, Alicia, go for it. And we're like, oh, wait, seriously? Like, we had no idea how to conduct that or how it would work. And we kept asking people, like, what should we do? They're like, just, do whatever you feel is right. And we're like, what does that mean, though? So we were like, okay, if we're going to do an interview, there should be like a reason why we're interviewing Drake Bell and this other band that we got on the interview called Lip Candy. We were like, what's like a place you'd go and hang out, like where you just chat, not like a formal place in Disney. You just like sort of hang out and just, shoot the shirt. And we were like, what about Club Cool? And I'm like, oh my God, what if we just call it Club Cool? Like, it's just a show where you come and hang out, and it's like kind of 90s vibes. And Alicia was like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. So I took a photo that we had because Club Cool was closing, and thankfully we covered everything. So I replicated the logo, and then I said to Tom, I'm like, hey, Thomas, draw me and Alicia as in the most 90s clothes possible. And she's like, and Thomas is like, okay. And then he gave me this, and I'm like, perfect. He always seems to know exactly what I mean. But the logo came out great, and I think it definitely gives off like major 90s kind of Gravity Falls type vibes. And right now we're just like, the interview went great, and Drake Bell and Lip Candy were both super cool. And at this point, we're just trying to find other people to talk to, like people who were like influential in Disney in the 90s or grew up in the 90s. But honestly, that's very difficult. We made sort of like a list of people we wanted to talk to, but not everyone likes to get back to you. Even just hearing like a no thank you would be super cool, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But yeah, I still love the logo, and I wish we could do more with it. It seemed like a great idea for a show.
I think we lost Rob again.
No, all right. It's internet connection.
I'll keep showing things.
Control. Sure. Oh, so there's just a lot of photos here. These are the same photo. There's you, Colleen, on the far left. Really? It's sort of hard to see.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the window. We did a recent show where it was something we normally do during marathon shows, where we show photos or memories from the parks from the past and the present. And that was super fun to do, because it's everyone like this graphic show. Everyone has a story behind every image. Picture can tell 1,000 words, or however that thing goes. How does that saying go?
An image is worth 1,000 words.
Okay, I was close. Thank you very much, though. But yeah, there's a lot of the bottom left is an image from a photo from we rented out, I think, the Dino Institute. There's a second floor to the Dino Land dinosaur ride, and it's themed to like the Dino Institute. And so the second floor, you can rent that out, and I think we did some kind of panel presentation, or it was just like a Wigs exclusive breakfast. So I think that's Ron, Nathan, and Patrick. And then the one right above that is just a great photo, Shannon and Colleen spying on Eric and I think Fig taking photos of food at like, where was it? I don't remember exactly where that was.
It was the official reopening of Beaches and Cream. And
that's it.
I am tasked with making reservations for things like that. So I had made like multiple. And so they had an earlier one, and the one that I had made that was like actually around lunchtime, I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to take my family. And so we were waiting outside, and they happened to be seated by a window. So Shannon and I went and stared in the window. And so Annie and Wolf were right in front of the window, and Nick was across from them. So Nick could see us, and he was laughing. They were very serious about taking pictures of food. So like it took them a while to notice, but it was really funny. And I love that picture too. Rob, are you with us?
Maybe not.
He was moving, and then it stopped.
Top right is I was just gonna say the rest of those photos there for the staff memories. The top right one was, I think, Rex the Halls. Same with the bottom one. That one's outside of imagination. So there's a lot of people who are in the chat right now who are probably in these photos. I think Jarrett's in there, and I think Courtney's in there. And then top middle was during Stage 89. We got an exclusive Director Mickey character encounter just for us for Stage 89. And so everyone that's in that photo, we were sharing a hotel room. We called it the Happiness Hotel, like the Muppets. And so that's Thomas and Fig and Ashley and Michael and Ben and me. I was like, that's Michael, right? Oh my God. Like I have the worst memory in the entire world. All right, next one is just, I think the...
Wait, is Rob back?
Yeah, I think...
Rob, didn't you share the hotel with us? Why aren't you in that photo?
No. I you were like, hey, don't get in this...
No.
Did I say that?
Rob.
Someone said, wow, Ben is tall. Yeah, he is.
Everybody in my neighborhood probably logs on the exact same time of the afternoon.
Oh, boy. Is Tyler short? Yeah, I'm also kind of short. Thanks. All right, we can move on to the next one.
But I think this is as back as it gets.
7.
Is there another one?
7.
I just put up a top 7 graphic.
Okay, so the top 7 thing was pretty funny because we obviously the 7 thing is a joke on the network, and so he asked for a top 7 logo for the top 7 of countdown that they do on News Tonight. And I put it together, and I couldn't find. I thought it would be kind of cool to do 7s that were like from the parks, but I couldn't find 7s from the parks. So I just put a whole bunch of 7s in the background, thinking, okay, that'll be good. And so I submitted the graphic, and the response was they need to be 7s from Disney. They need to be 7s from the park. And I was like, I looked around, I really couldn't find any. And then it was like this onslaught of like pictures that hit the chat of people. Like Tom went and dug some up, other people dug some up, and they start putting them out there. So like right now in the picture that you're looking at, these are all 7s that are actually from the parks. I mean, that's the level of detail that went into this. There's the 7 from the torch around World Showcase. There's a 7 from one of I think a steam engine. There's a 7 from a line from the ground in front of the Expedition Everest coaster at the top left. So it's authentic, it's real, it's Disney 7s all the way through. And again, that was one that I think that it's neat that those little details are there, but I think most people probably wouldn't see it first glance. And then this one came up because we were doing, Park Center, and we on Park Center tried to talk only about Disney parks and not about Disney movies or Universal or anything else like that. So Ben asked me to do this, to make up this logo, because we were, especially on the post show, we would drift into comparing things or talking about Universal. And so it kind of made it a bit that if we were going to start talking about Universal, he had to put this logo up to basically transition the show into Universal Center, which again goes back to what we were talking about earlier about having access to the logo to do fun things like that.
Gag bits.
Yeah,
I just tried to shove as much of our things together that we possibly could have in this graphic. Except the what?
Speaking of stealing images, where'd you get that image of me?
That's a picture we took at Stage 89 when we were at Pandora.
Oh yeah,
we did a bunch of PhotoPass photos.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
so we were all
like
doing like superhero poses, and we were all looking off into the distance, and so that's where I grabbed that one from.
You were laying on the ground, I think. I think that was your go-to move.
Yeah. The only thing that no one has ever seen before is the little Monopoly Man Chapek in the bottom, which I made for something, and then we decided that it was not we needed to change the graphic, but I kept that, and I'm like, we got to use this somewhere else. It looks so creepy. Was there any more, Colleen, or is that it for now? Oh, there's one.
Okay,
what is that?
It's a gyoza dog.
Oh gosh, I want one of those right now.
Can you hear me okay?
Is that that's a hot dog in a steamed bun, right?
Guys, Tom's here.
Thanks for picking the worst picture of me for this, by the way.
That was the only picture I could get. See, this one though was like it's better in Tokyo
You can
Tour.
ask.
Okay. Well, but what fun is that? I feel like you approved this image at some point.
Yeah, like we have to hunt down photos a lot of the time. I'm just like.
So in this particular picture, it was Tom holding one of the cones, I think, from the Cozy Cone. Maybe it was like the chili and cheese cone. And so they always talk about him and the gyoza dog. So I went and found one, and then like put that in place, and then put him underneath the or like on Main Street in Tokyo. So like none of these pieces were together. Obviously, all of them were separate. But I mean, I think it's a flattering picture, Tom. This one I put in this one because here's the thing is that when all of these everything was started closing down because of coronavirus, I thought this meme hit my head immediately that there should be cast members working from home, and what would that look like, and that they were operating rides. And so I never saw one pop up, and so I decided just to make one. And it just made me laugh a lot. And, I showed it around, because we were already quarantined, I showed it around the family. I was like, is this funny? And they're like, it's okay. But I took this painstaking detail to put these people inside an apartment on this vehicle. And I don't know. It just made me laugh a lot, because everybody had their own memes about, government work from home and, construction workers, and this is what they're doing. So again, this was one that I did just because it popped into my head, and I thought this would be hilarious, and I hope it was at least a little funny, but
no, it's great.
Yeah.
What is this? Oh, the bee video.
I'm being stung repeatedly.
There's a bee. Oh,
why is there a bee?
It's very cold out. They've come in.
What do we do? Get off!
Well, bees hate water.
You can't do that. Because all our hives have
Could have
been
remembered the
destroyed.
script, by the way. Thanks, B.
The script?
You didn't go to CityWorks, B.
I'm a space bee!
Oh no, not the space!
The best part of this, I think, is the title, because there's a spaceship on the top right. and then a Joffrey's on the bottom left.
Nice.
Colleen, can I talk about what that was supposed to be, or is that spoilers?
No, you can talk about it. It's fine.
Okay, Colleen said for WDWNT Live, I'm going to do an episode of a show where it's the bees have taken over the studio, and her and Shannon were both going to be bees, and they were just going to do some kind, I don't even know what the show was going to be, but it would have just been, she called it Invasion of the Bees, and I'm like, this would be a great like horror movie poster. So she asked for a logo, and then I did the logo, and then she's like, can you like edit like an introduction? So it was like they were mistreated, they were insulted, and now they've taken over kind of thing. And yeah, I grabbed like horror music and then did that animation, and I'm like, it turned out great. And then unfortunately, social distancing, the two of them couldn't be in the studio at the same time. So I hope you still do that, Colleen. Like, I want to see whatever that was going to be. Get it, B?
Someday.
Shannon just tuned in to the chat at the perfect time.
So this was a bit that they used to do, and then it never really had a graphic, and so this, it became like we should have had a graphic for each bit they would do. So this is one that I put together, but it's again, it's weird sometimes to try to do something for the World Showcase because of it being all the way around the lagoon, trying to include like the parts that like stand out for people or that make the most sense or tell the story. And so I actually went in and created or took a picture of the lagoon across the World Showcase with American Adventure in Italy, because I thought that was a neat side to do. And then I basically made a cartoon image out of the actual image so that it didn't look like just a plain photograph, and added that stuff in there. And then I think, Tyler, did you do something afterwards to animate that at some point?
No, not yet, at least.
Okay. I don't know. There was a lot of stuff that, like, I think along the way where I've like, I've done logos, and then, you've gone in and animated them, like the Jungle Cruise, the Jumble Cruise one. But anyway, that's that. So this one was a video that was requested and I put together on the fly.
I've never seen this before.
Well, it was a meme. It was requested. It was like, hey, can you put together this meme for I think it's from The Naked Gun. It's from one of those kind of spoof movies. And so when he, it was like, hey, this is a video and it's been memed a lot. And so can we do this, but have it be Disney snacks? And this is what we'll be doing when we go back to the park. And so I was like, yes, I could do that. And it's super rough, but it was just a meme that we ran on Instagram, and then we added the yummy music to it from Justin Bieber. But it was fun to do, but it's like very tongue in cheek because it doesn't look real, because it's like the pieces don't fit necessarily right on there, but you get the gist of it. And he goes and takes a bite of the Mickey bar, and I don't know, it's just kind of funny, and I thought I would throw that out there because I wasn't sure if you don't follow us on Instagram, which you should, at WDWNT, then you would have missed that one. But now you can go see it.
Wigs ad. We used to have a static image of Tom playing a washboard, and I'm like, we have so many more like images of like events and stuff, so we put this together. Like that's from the Reflections event that we did. That was the actual singer of Promise from Illuminations. She came and sang live along with I think it was Gavin Greenway, who was the composer. That's our Adventurers Club reunion. People don't know that the fireworks at the end of this were our fireworks. When we did the Pleasure Beach event, we had fireworks for us. Like Disney, we asked Disney, we're like, can we get fireworks? And then they like just asked a bunch of questions like, what designs do you want, or what style of fireworks and stuff. And those are for us. Those were exclusively for our beach party event. So yeah, people don't know those aren't just any fireworks. Those are our fireworks.
And you should join Wigs.
And yeah, please join Mike's. Oh, is that why you brought that up?
I think that's probably why she put that up there. It could have gone either way, Tyler. I think, either way.
Oh, that's funny. I'm sorry. We have our WDWNT Interglobe Society, otherwise known as the WIGS, WIGS. We have a ton of post shows. It's not just a tip jar like some Patreons are. This one is for people who want to get even more of our shows. For News Tonight and Parks Center, we do post shows. And then there's also episodes of like Dream Finders and Ride Rehab that are done ahead of time. You can, check those out ahead of time. And we have a lot of like ride, like feasibility studies and a ton of like documents that Imagineering has created that we have. And so we've scanned those in high res, so you can check those out. If you ever watch Back to the Future and you're like, you love this stuff on Disney Mountain or like the original design of like Alien Encounter, we have all that kind of stuff and high res images, photos, text, documents. So we've been scanning those in for the past 2 months since WDWNT Live started. So you should definitely go check that out. It's patreon.com/WDWNT. It's $2 a month. And that's if you want to see even more of this kind of stuff. I think I did like a mock-up of what the Haunted Mansion opening we did, how I did that. So there's like a kind of like a, how do I word this? What's it called? It's like a little making of kind of thing on there. So there's tons of stuff. There's a whole backlog of amazing content. So go check that out.
All I know is Rob looks tired, and Rob's got another show today.
I'm not tired.
This
You're
is just
tired.
one thing for this morning. Tonight we have Deep in the Plus Live, hosted by Rob. Rob, what are you talking about?
The very first Deep in the Plus Live that we did basically a run through of the 6-month history, I guess, at that point of Disney Plus. But tonight we're going to talk about a lot of the news that's happened since then. We're going to talk about a lot of the originals that are coming up and play a game, and we got a lot of other stuff happening. So we'd love to have you join us tonight at 9 o'clock for Deep in the Plus Live.
Yes, then tomorrow morning we got the Wolf Den at 11 a.m. Like I was saying, we're doing some fun stuff with Disney Parks maps. I did some graphic stuff for that. It should be really fun. Come check it out. 9 p.m. Park Center. Ben is going to be going over with the panel with the events of the past week with Disney News. Top seven news items.
7?
Thursday. 7. Thursday at 11, we got Party with Pete. I don't know if he has a special guest. This is the last Party with Pete, though. 9 p.m. WDW News Tonight. And we're going to have some amazing segments, characters. We're doing Leveled on Disney's.
Like.
Oh, yeah, of course.
This week is
You're the host of it.
The Dream Sequence Jeopardy. And Leveled, but we're doing Hollywood Studios background music loops this week.
Nice.
That should be fun. Last week's was so much fun for Epcot background music. If you enjoy them, if you enjoy like the brackets that we do, it's different than that, but it's the same amount of arguing. I think it's really fun to watch. Friday, May 29th, we got Disney Cruise Line News Today, or DCL News Today. We've covered Universal, we've covered Disney, we've covered almost all of the Disney parks. Now we're covering the cruise lines. So check that out. And then at 9 p.m. we have the finale to WDWNT Live. It's going to be a recap of everything we've done for the past 2 months or so, more than 60, 70 days at this point. And then a special farewell. We got something really cool for the opening of that. And then I think everyone who ran a show is going to do something a little bit special. I'm not too sure about that. Tom, can you talk more about it?
Nope, I can't.
All right, then. We got a lot of special stuff for that.
We're going to figure that out.
Oh,
cool. But yeah, this has been graphics time with Rob and Tyler. So I hope everyone had fun. I hope everyone learned a little something about graphic design.
How difficult it is to work
and
with me.
Illustration.
They were very nice about it.
Tom says something vague, and then I make it, and he tells me it's bad, and then I have to redo it.
They never say your name. They were very like, we, they.
He doesn't tell me what he wants, so I do something, and then he doesn't like what I did, and then... Yeah.
Hush, let them end their show. You interrupted last time.
That is
Well,
any graphic design job, though, is what we're saying. Is
as
we're
much as I know
always
that you're just poking fun, though, I do think that the collaborative that we put together. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff we've talked about, we start down one road and then we get collaborative on Slack, and I think it ends up better. So I do. I appreciate feedback. It doesn't mean that we didn't, work really hard on it and then cry a lot in our sleep after you told us you hated it. But other than that,
Or if no one laughed at it. I heard that. What was the thing that no one laughed at?
Well, there was a few. There was the Seekers.
There was a few. Thanks.
The Museum of the Museum. Night at the Museum of the
people
Weird,
like that with
and
Ben
it had
Stiller? No, people like that.
You on the show. You're like, he made it look too good. It's not funny.
It did
and then there
look
was
too good.
the,
It almost looked like a real thing they were doing. I think that's why.
Real Mousewives
People got excited.
was another one.
Real Mousewives killed, though.
Colleen, did I give you an image of like a boat going through a hotel lobby? It was an incorrect fact.
Oh,
No,
Is it
I don't.
Fiesta tour.
I don't think so.
I misinterpreted that. He was like he said it was the Grand Fiesta tour. You get to ride on the Grand One yacht, and I interpreted that as, oh, if you stay at the Grand Floridian, you ride a boat through the lobby.
But why would there be a
what I did with
Fiesta at
it.
the Grand Floridian?
He's like, no, the ride. I'm like, oh.
No, I think the one that maybe we said nobody laughed at was that White Claw thing, because I mean, I whipped that one hard.
What was the
Like
White
the
Claw
thing?
thing?
It was when we were doing
the
haunted house.
Yeah, the billboards, and it was supposed to be a haunted house made out of White Claw, but it just looked like a White Claw, like Happy Face, when it was done. So
this?
because it was really bad.
I
That's the
don't
only reason
know.
I
If it was
showed it.
real bad, I'd remember.
So it was somewhere
Why
in the
was there
middle.
a haunted house made of White Claw?
It was
Halloween
that
Horror
billboard
Nights.
for Universal Horror Nights.
Yeah, it was a billboard for Horror Nights.
But I
and
don't know why
idea
the
was-
joke was White Claw.
Well,
because that's what people are drinking there.
yeah, probably.
They had Orlando
But it was
billboards were good. Oh yeah,
Yeah, it was
no
that
one got it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I whiffed it. It was like the
Is that
idea
supposed to be the
was,
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man made out of White Claw?
No,
No, it's a
it was
haunted
supposed-
house.
It was a haunted house, and those were windows and a door, and that
So
was
you
actually
can't tell,
like
though.
someone actually had done that, and I used the same sort of template for the White Claw, so I made the White Claw out like that. Like I said, that was the one I said nobody laughed at because again, I missed the mark. I mean, and that was on me because I didn't build a huge house out of White Claw.
Real Mousewives, though, is one I remember the most, but I think the graphics set it up, and then I think I just sat there and I went, the followers are fake, but the drama is real. And then Nick lost it for 10 minutes. But, yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
I remember that one.
Okay, boys, your show is over. Say bye-bye.
It's over.
Oh,
Anyways,
okay.
thank you very much for watching the show. I've been Tyler. That's Rob, and we are two of the graphic designers here at WDWNT. So thank you so much for watching. And maybe we'll do this again in the future for wigs. We'll see, because we continue to make graphics all the time. As soon as this is done, we're probably going to go work on stuff for Thursday's show. Anyways, that's all. Thank Rob, anything closing?
No, just tune in tonight, Deep in the Plus Live, 9 p.m. And thank you guys for watching this show. Thanks, Tyler, for putting it together. Appreciate it. And it was a lot of fun to kind of give you guys a second view of the stuff that we've been working on for the past year or two.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks to Colleen for running tech, and have a great night. Say bye, Rob.
Yep. Bye, Rob.
Yay.